right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first official episode, second try of Interest Overtime, a live stream show where I'm going to take some time to get to know you a little bit, see how everyone's doing this week, chat about the latest episode, and answer whatever questions that are on your mind. I'm really excited about this new idea. I've tried to work really hard at it and to set up my set and do everything right and hopefully get the mic to work now. So I'm hoping it works really well. So what's my plan? How do I think it's going to work? Well, the idea is that this is an informal chat between you and me about, sort of a guided discussion at the beginning, and then we'll just move into whatever you want. And that's going to require two things. First, I need you guys to be active in the chat. In other words, talk to me, talk to each other, try to have a good conversation with each other. I'm not going to mod things too much. I mean, I spent a whole bunch of time putting in no words that so you can't cuss at each other or me. But basically, I want this to be a lively discussion. So feel free to just chat about whatever you want and go ahead and keep posting. I'm going to try to pay attention to it so that it can be an interaction. And I know texting isn't the best way to communicate, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to try to pay attention to what you're saying. During the test run, there was a question asked. I went off on, for 5 minutes answering it, and when I went back and I read it again, I had not answered the question right, and that's not what they asked. So I'm going to try to do better this week. Second, maybe the most important thing, is that we need stuff to talk about. So that means sending me questions during the week over social media, email, the contact me button on the website, or you can actually send me now through something called SpeakPipe, an actual voice question. I've actually got a few from people who have sent voice questions, and I'm going to try to play them during the episode. So that being said, you know how I've been doing with audio today. So hopefully that works. We'll do a little test, and you guys can help me out. The third thing is that it would be awesome if you'd hit the like, the subscribe, all the things the really good streamers say, because it really helps, especially if you're talking about a Christian streamer, because Facebook, Instagram, all the social media places, they really don't like promoting Christian content. And every time you use a Christian hashtag, and I know this is true, I've got a 3D printing company, and when I hit the share button on that, 100 different likes, a bunch of people see it, it just goes, whatever. And then I've got the same amount of followers on my Instagram, but when I hit go and use Christian hashtags or religious hashtags or even controversial hashtags, I get 2, maybe 3, even views. Nobody sees it. So it's completely up to you guys to share this and to let people know if it's any good and if it's worthwhile. And finally, if there is something I can improve, let me know, and I'll do my best. But since it's sort of my first time doing this, and it's kind of the first time some of you have seen me, like I'm looking at Lidegate. We've never met before. A few of the people I know that are on here, and so I kind of know them. But if you don't know me and this is the first time seeing me, let me introduce myself. My name is Al Deschanel. Most people just call me Pastor Al. As far as education goes, I've got a Master's of Divinity, I've got a Bachelor of Religion, and so my expertise is sort of in the area of Bible and theology and practical faith issues and just worldview stuff. I've been doing this for a while now, and I love talking about that stuff and answering questions like that. As far as experience goes, I've been serving in various churches for about 30 years now. I've been a full-time pastor in a Christian church for 15. I'm mainly a preacher, teacher, writer type guy, but my two passions are this. One is connecting with people around the world who have questions or concerns about Christianity or God or spirituality or things that are going on in their life, and then hearing their stories and answering those questions and maybe giving them advice and hearing from them. I love being a listening ear, and I love connecting with people and answering their questions. My second passion is technology. Social media. I've been making videos, I've been making podcasts for years. You'd think I know how a microphone works. I've been making it for years. Desktop publishing, 3D printing, I love doing tech stuff. And before you ask, my Minecraft server is amazing, and the keyboard and the mouse are definitely Razer Chroma, so my RGB makes my computer go way faster. The mission here is to kind of mash up all my technological passions and my Bible passions and my people passions together into what I'm presenting right now. I want to talk about interesting stuff. I want to answer some hard questions. I want to point you towards God, towards truth. And I know right now, especially in the world today, it is there's a lot of people out there that are lonely, that have some serious questions because they're being faced with like mortality issues, sickness issues, big world-changing issues. I mean, over the last 4 years, it's been insane. So there's a lot of stressed out folks out there, a lot of curious folks that are asking themselves big questions, and other ones that want to go on the internet and they want to look at maybe Twitch, YouTube streams, but they want something a little bit more, shall we say, a little deeper than their usual fare. And that's what I'm hoping this becomes, is just a little time for us to get together on a Sunday to chat about some interesting things that are a little bit deeper. And my hope is that we can do this. So I'm going to do a little bit of structure. I'm not going to give this intro every time, but I'm hoping that we can do it. A little bit of structure, and I figure what we'll do is we'll start the pod by talking about the podcast. So don't worry if you haven't heard it. We're just going to use it as sort of a jumping off point for discussion points anyway. If you are interested in listening, just go to my website, artofthechristianninja.com. You'll find it all on there, or you can go to wherever you get your podcast because, it's everywhere. But we're going to try to do that first, and then we're going to move into just whatever you want. And so let me give a quick caveat. I figure I better do this. I don't know if it's legal or if I have to, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here's the caveat. Remember, I'm just riffing here, and regardless of my training and experience, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a psychiatrist, so cut me some slack. Make sure that you check with what I'm saying with the Bible, with your doctor, with your pastor, with your psychiatrist. Don't go jump out and do anything just because I said it and then sue me, okay? That's all I'm saying. I'm going to do my best, but we're just talking here, eh? I'm a pastor, I'm a Bible guy, but I'm not your doctor. All right, so first things first. And I want to try to do this every week. It's something I didn't do last week. I want to try, and I'm just going to say, how you doing, chat? How have things been in the last little while where you are? Because I know, looking at the chat right now, I know there's someone local from where I live. I know there's someone from all the way out Vancouver area in BC. I know there's someone who's looking in from Germany. And Lydgate, I don't know where you're from. But right now, we are spanning how many thousands of kilometers to have this conversation where we together can ask the question, how are you doing? I think that's absolutely fascinating. Where you got, 3 different places to watch, and all of us kind of mashing together to see how we're doing. So if you're good, leave a thumbs up. If you aren't doing that great, leave me a thumbs down. Let me know. And I'd love to hear just kind of how your week's been. Lydgate is my wife. Oh, good to know. And excellent. Good to see you. All right, there you go. So now I got 2 people out far away in Germany. So this is very cool. How you been? How are things going? I am curious how things are doing in your neck of the woods. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a smiley face. If you're answering my question, things are interesting this week for me. I've spent hours and hours trying to set this thing up to be as good as possible. In the meanwhile, taking care of my family. In the meantime, trying to apply for jobs and doing all the rest of that. I've been up pretty late trying to make this thing work, get the set look right. So that's my plan is to try to make this as good as possible. But it's been such a focus of mine. I actually had to take time off last night because I was really kind of geared for it. And then when I sat down, I wanted to do something. I wanted to go live, and I just realized I shouldn't because I'm too tired and I don't have anything to say. So I'm looking forward to today. All right. So why don't we jump into the chat? All right. So we're going to talk about the chat this week. So just to give you a bit of a refresher, this week I gave a bit more of my testimony, specifically my time in Cleveland, Ohio, some of my struggles there, and how willpower is a muscle. That was another thing we talked about. And then we did our Pilgrim's Progress study where we covered passion and patience and what that means about prioritizing things in my life. Completely tired, sick. I'm really sorry about that. Dude, I heard I've got your questions ready, and you sounded a little rough, but it was pretty good. It was nice to hear your voice. It's nice to put a voice to a face, man. It's pretty fun. And I hope that this means you can sit back, you can just sit at the computer or at the TV or at your laptop or whatever, and just veg and feel good, and then me and you can become closer friends. I just think it's a beautiful thing. I'm sorry you're sick though. All right, so I'll tell you what. Why don't we start with of the first question, and I'm going to go to the speak pipe. So I've got a question here from David, and so I'm going to hit the button. So this is a question from Avar Kilian, number 3. Let's see if this is the right one. And make sure, let me know if you can hear it.
Hello, Pastor. Sorry that I'm bothering you again. David from Germany again here.
I'm not doing these in order.
Just listening to your retelling of the story of your American German church you had to pastor, and how seemingly racist they were. I find that really, really, really fascinating, because here in Germany I do not experience anything of that kind, especially with the old people. Those that survived through Hitler, they are really nice to foreigners. I mean, it's really fascinating. Anyway, I don't think I would have fit in that church either, even though I would have understood all the talk. So I don't think we Germans are all like that. Also, if this kind of running commentary that I'm giving currently is...
All right. So I've heard that. Okay. So, I mean, the comment is, it's a surprise. Now, and one of the things, I almost didn't say it in the actual episode, was to talk about that there was these racist undertones or in the church, because as soon as you say that, people want to kind of paint everyone with the same brush, and that I absolutely don't want to do that. There were some lovely people in the church and some amazing people, and they were German too, like hardcore. And so I'm not painting everyone with the same brush. The issue was that I guess you'd say bad apples. And I mean, we're talking, okay, back up, right? You're going back 2007. Some of these people were 75, 80 years old. Which means they were born in like 1920, which means they were in the Hitler Youth. They were in the, sort of indoctrinated in that worldview. And when they came to America, they stayed in their little cloister. They stayed in their German bubble. In fact, to the point where some of them didn't, hardly had to learn English, because they worked for a German and they went to a German church and they have a German family, which is why they were so hardcore on their church being a German Baptist church. But what would happen is that we had such a frustrating problem with the 1 or 2 or 3, maybe only 2, that would actually scoff or give bad eyes to, or would refuse, or actually brought up as a problem that to have these kind of people, and we had ageism there too, like young people are dumb, and the young people didn't like the old people because they were out of touch. Like, of course there were lots of isms, but it was a real problem. And so definitely don't paint everybody with the same brush, because quite frankly there's no one way of being German, and certainly racist is not it. In fact, right now in Germany, and I only know from the news and what I've seen, they're bending over backwards to try to do everything they can to help as many people as they can and be as open as they can. And so it's in fact, if they've erred any direction, it's that they've had too much kindness, too much openness to all kinds of different cultures, and it's gotten them in a little bit of financial and population trouble. So yeah, certainly. So but I've got a few questions here. So relate willpower to our daily Christian walk, says Keith Stewart. Can you relate willpower to our daily Christian walk? Now, in answer to that question, yeah. The one thing that's interesting about willpower is that it is a spiritual gift. Self-control is a spiritual gift. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. Gentleness, self-control. And so that means that as you become a Christian, your willpower, your self-control becomes something that God works with, pushes, makes easier. Now, we all know that there are non-Christians out there that have an incredible amount of self-control, incredible amount of willpower. But I think I would equate it the same way that we put singing, right? You got people out there that are amazing at singing, and you got people out there that are amazing at leading worship, at drawing people into worship. And it can feel the same and it can look the same. However, there's a component to the worship that there isn't in the component of someone who's just great at singing. So my my take on it when it comes to willpower in the Christian walk is to say we have a responsibility to do what we can to follow those two things that I said, which is, for example, like there's 7 in the article, but to say we're not going to surround ourselves with sin because, like the Bible says, if one who scoops, hot coals into their lap is going to get burned, which is the idea that, if you set yourself up with a whole bunch of sins and temptations around you, you're going to be in trouble. So the idea of you can't have willpower, you're human, if you surround yourself with temptations, right? So you put a blocker on the internet, and you put you don't buy the treats, and you make a schedule. But the other side of that isn't just that you have to not do things, but the idea is to put into practice the disciplines of self-control, of practicing discipline, because it's a both and, right? You've got the discipline, then you're saying, I choose to obey, I will make the choice to obey. God has given me, I trust God, his way is better, so I will obey him. And then you've got your personal strength to deal with. In other words, it's not, you're drawn towards God, you want to obey him, but at the same time within you, there's a battle. So I think that the spiritual aspect of self-control, of willpower, is where you can say, God, give me more strength, point me in the right direction, help me to have the spiritual gift, the spiritual strength to do the right thing, so I can obey you. And God will honor that, because it is a spiritual, it's a spiritual gift. It's something that gets a fruit. It's a fruit of the Spirit that he can give to you. You will get as you pursue him. So you do your devos, you say your prayers, and you will be, self-control will be one of them. So that's how they're kind of connected. As you pursue God, your self-control will get better. But at the same time, it's up to us to also try to frame our life in such a way that we're not surrounded by temptation, and we're not surrounded by things that are going to destroy our willpower or use up our willpower. And that'll help us become better disciples. All right, let's go back to the chat a little bit. We got under L, last minute videos. I believe in Jesus, but refuse in the existence of Satan. You know what? We're going to cover that in the next one. Hang on to that question, because right now we're going to do that a little bit on the podcast. Then we'll go into that. So it's a great question. Just hold on there. Everkillian says, my grandfathers were young men under Hitler, and so both had to serve in the army. One served in the Kriegsmarine, and the other was pushed to become a translator. Both were Bible-believing Christian and had no knowledge of the death camps. What an incredible world, and how difficult it must have been, not only to live in that time as a Christian. Like, we all know Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his story, the kind of man who not only was willing to go against Hitler and preach against Hitler, but the kind of person who was actually willing to, go even to try to assassinate Hitler. But I have no doubt that there were people who, like today, right? If you look at China, there are people who are more than happy to do deals with China. They're more than happy to buy items from China. They're more than happy to you get their products and use manufacturing and Chinese manufacturing, and they don't think about the implications that has, and that some of the stuff they're doing is from not only labor camps, but slave labor camps, where they're taking women and men away from their families, like especially Islamic men and women, and plunking them in camps and forcing them to work. Or for that matter, Nestle. Nestle using slave labor to make your chocolate bars, to stealing water from people's towns, or destroying the environment. They're not a good company. But there are people out there who don't know that. That all for them, the Smarties is just Smarties, right? The hot chocolate's just hot chocolate, and so they don't know. But I think it comes down to what happens after you do know. So if you do know and you were culpable, if you do know and you realize I was part of this, what did you do after? Did you ask forgiveness? Did you seek to bless the people that you didn't even know you were hurting? Did you try to find ways to make sure that never happened again? Was there, afterwards, and I don't know your grandparents' story, obviously, but my guess is that as Christians, it would have absolutely devastated them to learn that they were part of a group that was hurting so many people and was producing such evil. And so I would love to hear more of their story as to what they did after, what their reaction was afterwards. One of them was nearly sent to Stalingrad, but his brother intervened. He later smuggled Bibles into the USSR. Going through tough times for long periods can... Oh, hold on. Let me hang on to that one. Yeah, wow. All right, you know what? We're going to move on to... what did Jeff say? I think we're going back to willpower. Going through tough times for long periods can sap your passion, even though your willpower to reach out remains. Does that mean you are falling away from God? How do you get that passion back? Excellent question. Going through tough times for a long period of time. That said, first anniversary of 2 weeks before to flatten the curve, right? Because when we started this whole COVID thing, like a million years ago, they said, "Yep, about 2 weeks and we'll flatten the curve. Just everybody go home, wash your hands. It won't be a problem." And no, it didn't work. So we start to get what I don't know what you'd call fatigue. You get your body can only take so much stress. We can only take so much anxiety. We can only take so much frustration before our bodies give out. Now I've had that. That's been part of my story, is that I have been part of churches and been part of ministries that have taken so much from me, have required so much energy, and have been so stressful and difficult and frustrating and anger producing and sadness producing, and have been so hard that my body gave out. For the first time I experienced, it was a couple years ago, I experienced the inability to get out of bed. What had happened was I kept preaching, and I kept going to meetings, and I kept doing the right thing, and all of a sudden, I knew I was tired and I knew I was broken down, but all of a sudden I couldn't get out of bed. It was Sunday morning. I'd written my sermon on Friday, and I could not leave the bed. I was just done. My brain wouldn't let me. My body wouldn't let me, and I ended up sending a text saying, "I can't come to church today. I physically can't make it." So I know what it's like to go through stress for a long period of time, and you kind of reach out, grab for that willpower, and you've got a little bit. You grab for the willpower, and you got it, and then it's not there anymore. And so you start, everything becomes easier to compromise on. You end up compromising, like you feel lonely, so you go and eat. You look at things on the internet you shouldn't look at. You start posting angry stuff on the internet because you want to get into fights or you want to frustrate other people. Like you start yelling at your family, yelling at your kids. They didn't do anything. But you're just, it's hard to hold on because you're using so much of that energy to just not freak out, to not pass out, to not blow up your life, that it ends up leaking in other places. So first question, does that mean you're falling away from God? In a sense, I would say no. And the reason I say that is because when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and this is sort of the quintessential version, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was exhausted, so stressed out he was sweating blood, so afraid that he was on his knees begging God to not have to go through that. I don't want to be crucified. I don't want to go through hell. It's going to be painful on every level. I don't want to be separated from you, God, as the weight of sin is to come upon me, And so was he far from God in that moment because he was the most stressed out, the most afraid, the most frustrated? No, he was closest. So I think if we make the mistake of thinking that Christianity equals being happy all the time, always listening to worship music, going to all the cool fun events, always serving, then we've kind of got it wrong, because that kind of eliminates people who can't get there, people who are not, people who are crippled, people who have depression, people who have anxiety, whatever, and saying that since they can't do all the super fun, cool stuff, they can't serve in ministries and they can't, sing worship songs every day, they must not be Christian. And that's just not true. I think it's a different form of love. Now, I'm married, so there are times where I am, passionately in love with my wife. where we're on the same page, and we're like kids. We're just in love, and it's amazing, and we're just, Google-eyed for each other. And then there are times where we're mad at each other, and we are not getting along, and we're not seeing eye to eye. Now, are we less married? Are we farther from each other? I think the question comes down to, does that pain, that difficulty, that frustration drive me towards my wife? Because I want to reconcile, I want to get it right, I want us to be on the same page, even though it's difficult? Or does it drive me away from her because I'm just sick of dealing with her? I think she's wrong, and I don't want to have anything to do with her. I think it's a similar thing between you and God. If that stress drives you towards God, even if you are just an exhausted mess on the floor, but you are crying out, and all you can say is, God, I don't know what to do, and I need you, and all I can say is I need your help, and I'm going to just lean on you, and that's all I've got in the tank right now. I think that is a time where you can say you're not far, but you are actually growing closer to God in a different way. Could you equate passion with motivation in your question? Passion with motivation. Kind of. I think passion is an emotional thing, as in it is it's an external. You can kind of see passion, you can feel passion, it drives you. Whereas motivation and willpower is an internal thing. It's something that is generated within that people generally don't see. That's the hard part. That's the discipline part, is the motivation. So I think you can lose your passion, as in, like, you can lose the energy, the fight, the excitement, the I want to go and I want to be there, and I want to do battle, and I want to pray and worship and serve and give, and you can lose all that passion. Whereas inside, your motivation and your desire is still for God. You're still pointed at God. It's just in a different way. So I would say cut yourself some slack. Know that God is with you in both in season and out of season, in sickness and in health, in poor and in when you're feeling wealthy. Like, God's still there, and each of those is an opportunity to grow in a different way. Each of those is an opportunity to grow stronger with Him. Even though there are times, there's a book called Dark Night of the Soul, which is essentially about when God says, "Here's what life is like." Where you don't feel me as close, where you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, where you're surrounded by evil. You're seated at the table with your enemies. This is Psalm 23, right? This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. But the question is, while you're there, walking through the valley of the shadow of death, sitting with your enemies, do you know that God is there with you? Can you just give it up and let Him? Can you say, you know what, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to do it, and I don't have the strength to do it, so I'm going to wait on you and trust you? Can you get there? Because if you can get there, your faith is still alive. That motivation, that strength, that power that you have within you to be able to go, oh, that's all I've got. This is all the strength I have. God, it's up to you. I think that's that's different than passion. All right, that's my best job at that one. So I want to move on to another question that we got. Actually, David sent one here, so I'm going to play another SpeakPipe question because I think it's a really good one. Let's see. Boom.
Hello, Pastor Al. David from Germany again. You said in your current show that you wanted to know if we were interested in your life story. I have to tell you, yes, I am, because there are some surprising correlations to my own. I just didn't have those friends. So I'm still dealing with a lot of that, and I'm more of a fighter, so my way of dealing with frustration is anger and not running away. But I really like your life story, really. Again, correlations abound. So don't stop doing that.
I really appreciate that, Dave. For me, there's so much power in your story. And going back to what Jeff said, there is power in your story because you've walked through difficult places with God. And so your story wouldn't be as good if your story didn't have the bumps. And so part of the reason I tell my story, and people actually, it's funny because, well, not funny, it's sad. People get really upset. A lot of people I've been a pastor, or when I've been in ministry, even with family members, they've been not too happy about me sharing my story. I don't throw them under the bus. I don't tell their stuff, because they want me to keep this facade. They want me to have the, pastors are always, perfect, and pastors are always faithful, and pastors never have a problem, and our faith gets us through, and we know all the answers. And it bugs them when I go, you know what, I don't have all the answers, and I do get tired, and I do get frustrated, and I do sin, and it's really hard. And here's some of the worst things in my life. Here's some of the hardest things I've gone through, things that I failed at. And it almost feels like they don't like it because it makes it too real, or it chips away at their ability to make me their pastor, or me their father, or me their whatever, a foundation for them, because I'm not, and I'm a weak one. That's why I keep pointing people to Jesus. Go to Jesus. Don't have faith in me. I'm just like the mailman. Have faith in Jesus. Lean on him. All right, you know what? I think that's good. We're going to move on to the next part, and we're going to talk about whatever you want. How about that? So let's go back to that question I saw a while back. I'm going to scroll up a little bit because it was really good. Last minute videos said, I believe in Jesus, but refuse in the existence of Satan. So I don't believe in Satan, but I believe in Jesus. I guess I'll start by saying I understand what you mean. It's so much easier to want to just believe in Jesus, the good stuff, the good story, he's a good teacher. His moral framework is what I want to live my life in. His example is how I want to live my life. His faithfulness and his strength of character, his willingness to go against the man, all that stuff. I want to be like that. So that's the Jesus I want. However, hell has a problem. I don't like that, because that means that some people that I love aren't going to be with me in heaven. It means that God is judgmental, and he is going to make people go to hell forever and ever and ever. And I don't like that. I want to say I'm a forgiving person, and how can I be more forgiving than God? It doesn't make sense, and it seems cruel. And because how can it be forever? So I can understand why a person would want to say, I don't like the idea of hell, but I do like the idea of Jesus. However, I would say this: your picture of Jesus is supposed to come from Scripture. Your picture of Jesus are supposed to come from how God presented himself. He's saying, this is who I am, this is how I am, this is what I expect, this is my character, this is my law, this is the way I do things, this is where the world's going and why I built it. And that comes from Scripture. And so we don't have permission to pick and choose what we want to believe and what we don't want to believe if God is the one presenting it to us, right? So you walk up to me and you say, okay, listen, I like you, Pastor Al, but I don't like that you have a family. So I don't believe you have a family. I think you're a single guy because I'm a single guy. And therefore, I believe that you are a single guy too. Because single guys, they're stronger because they have to fight temptation more. And single guys are better because they're more available for ministry. And single guys are better because then we can hang out more. So I'm just going to believe that you're single, okay? We can't, right? You can't just come up to me and impose upon me a belief that you have because you don't like something in my life. It doesn't make it real just because you want it to be that way. So the question comes down to, can you believe in Jesus, the biblical Jesus, the one presented in Scripture, the one who really lived, the historical Jesus that was, born and of a virgin in nativity and lived a perfect life and died on the cross to save people. Save people from what? Well, save them from the consequences of hell because of the curse of sin. Can you believe in him and not believe in hell? I don't think you have that option. Because if you do have that option, and you think you do, then what you're doing is you're creating a Jesus of your own making. You're saying, this is the Jesus I want to believe in. This is what I'm going to design. I'm going to create a God for me. in my image, my way. Well, where's the power in that? What kind of power does a God that you've created have? He's fiction. He's not real. So therefore, he has no power. He can't come to your rescue. He can't help you. He can't answer prayer. He can't guide you because he's not real. You have to pray to the real God. Talk to the real God. Connect with the real God through Jesus Christ, the real Jesus Christ, not one that you want to make in your head. But I do understand why it's hard to believe in hell. And a lot of people, you're not the only one who struggles with that. There are a lot of people out there who think that hell is fiction because it's too hard for them to believe. Well, okay, that's true. Satan. I mean, it's the... Good point. I apologize if I went on a tangent there. But it's all the same argument, right? If the Bible presents Satan as real, demons as real, Jesus had confrontations with demons. He cast out demons. He called Peter, someone who get thee behind me, Satan, using that real word. Then we're either saying, Jesus, you're a liar and a manipulator because you were using fictional spiritual stuff to freak people out, which is, obviously you don't want to follow that kind of Jesus. Or you're saying that the writers trumped up a bunch of stuff. They made up Satan because, you need a good and a bad guy. You need a bad guy. But then all of a sudden you've taken away the scriptures. So how do you know that about Jesus at all? How can you say anything about Jesus with any kind of authority of who he is and what he's about if you have wiped out the scriptures and you call Jesus a liar? It doesn't work. So if we're going to land on scripture, then we have to say, then it is truth. And we can get into that, a whole other thing. Why do you believe the Bible? But let's just assume you can. If the Bible is truth, it presents Satan as real. So you can't just decide you don't believe it, because that's not what God has presented. All right. Any more questions out there? I want to kind of go till I was kind of shooting for like an hour, three to four kind of thing. So is there any more questions out there for actually, if you want, I can go to another David question, because he, I think it's great. You know what, David, thank you for putting a bunch on SpeakPipe, because it shows people how it kind of works. So I'm going to play this one from David, who sent one in. It says this.
Hello, Pastor Al. David from Germany again. You just talked about willpower, and I thought that was very interesting that you said it was like a muscle. So if you train a muscle, it grows stronger and more durable and all that, but it has always its limits. I've been doing weightlifting for about 20 years now, and even though I'm much, much stronger than I used to be, there are still limits, and you have to know them. At the beginning, when I started working out, I trained every day, 7 days a week. Now I'm smarter and I only train 3 days a week and give myself a rest day. That's the same thing with willpower. You have to give yourself time off. For instance, you have said that you struggle with overeating and all that. The problem is not overeating. The problem is not using that. Meaning, as someone who does train a lot, I eat a lot. But I'm still in a good weight limit because I also train it away. Try doing a sport that you like, that is fun, doesn't take enormous amounts of time, and you can do it regularly. So you can do it every second day in a week. And then you'll see that the additional food you eat is no problem at all.
You're not wrong. You're absolutely right. And that's actually something I've been trying to do, is to burn more calories using lifting weights. And I'm looking forward to spring, because then we can really get out there and do some stuff. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But the idea of willpower being a muscle, your illustration is perfect. And that's kind of what they were trying to get to, is that if you use it too much, it's going to not work for you. So do your best to utilize your willpower in such a way that it makes sense. That the things you need willpower for, make sure you have some in the tank. You're absolutely right. That was absolutely great. All right, let's do one more question, and then we'll see what. There was another good one actually with that he sent. So I'll wait until I see here, and I'm going to. There's one more that David brought, and then I'm gonna put it out. All right, let's see what it sounds. Let's see, because this was a really good question.
Hello, Pastor Al. David from Germany here. Sorry if I sound a little bit off, but I am currently sick. Anyway, the question I had was, on your last show, you went very hard on that Canadian pastor who was thrown in prison because he didn't stop preaching. Now, we're currently reading The Pilgrim's Progress. That was written by a man called Bunyan, who was thrown in prison because he wouldn't stop preaching. Do you not see the correlation here? Of course, you said that the Canadian pastor could just do all the stuff the government said, and then he would be allowed to preach. But that was the case with Bunyan too. Bunyan would have to join the Anglican church and preach only in the church service, and then he would have been allowed to preach. He didn't do that. He, the same as the Canadian pastor, said, the government has no business in telling us how to preach and where we do it and how to do church. I think the correlation is pretty obvious. I don't know, have you ever considered that correlation, or didn't you just notice?
That's an excellent point, because the idea is that, why would I go on the side of the pastor should have just done what the government said at all, and not just gone, what, the government should be telling pastors what to do, because I do believe that, and so I do believe that the government should stay out of churches, the government should stay out of telling pastors what to do. I think the difference that I see, and if I had to put it together as to what the main reason is that I would differentiate Bunyan from Pastor what was his name? James, right? Is that Bunyan was required to be in a government-approved church, preaching government-approved material as a government-approved official who had to be registered. He didn't believe what the Anglicans were preaching. He didn't have the same beliefs as them. His theology would have had to change, and the government themselves, as in the government-approved church, was under a corrupt monarch. So the whole forcing everybody to get approved and register, it's China. That's China right now, where they're trying their best to mold Christianity into the form of a government-approved model. So there are government-approved Christian churches, but they have to toe the line. They have to change their message. They have to make sure that they're saying the right thing. And that's what Bunyan didn't want to do. So I think that's the difference, that theological difference. Now, that being said, after he was released from jail, after there was a change in the monarchy, after things got a little bit different, the separatists were suddenly no longer illegal. Or not as illegal, shall we say. He was able to get out. The Quakers actually requested he come out, and the Quakers themselves were sort of a form of separatists. He actually went and did. He got a preaching license, and he pastored an Anglican church. And I don't know his reason, but I'm guessing it's because the monarchy changed and the expectations changed, so he was actually able to preach what he thought was right. But that being said, he kept having secret non-Anglican churches on the side. He actually kept planting non-Anglican churches because for him, part of his theology said that to be under the boot of the monarch and having to be accountable to the monarch and having to be accountable to this structure called the Anglican Church that has been corrupted multiple times is he's like, I don't want to do that. I can't be under that. And so that's what made him illegal. So I think that's the difference. No one's telling Pastor James, his name is James, right? No one's telling him how he has to preach. No one's telling him the message has to change. No one's saying your government structure has to change. You have to report to us what you're saying. That I would absolutely no. You don't do that. What they said was, listen, during this pandemic, we're going to put some limitations on what you can do, just like we're putting limits on what everybody can do. Walmart, the beer store, everybody gets these limitations. You do too. Can you please work under them? And that's why I go to, if he really wanted to have all of his people come to church, have multiple services. Fine, do that. But I don't think I don't think the church was telling him what to preach. I think the church was, or I don't think the government was telling him what to preach. I think government just was trying to tell him, can you cut us some slack and please don't, and please work with what everybody's rules are. And I think that's the difference. All right. You know what? That's a good place to stop. Thank you so much for watching. I think I'm going to tune out now. It's almost 4:00. I hope you liked the live stream. Give me some feedback. If you did, what I can do to make it better. Turn on the microphone. That's probably a huge part of it. Send me some more questions. Use the SpeakPipe thing that I just put together. Maybe that's because I loved it. That was so great to be able to use that, to hear your voice. And send me through email. Send me through the Contact Me button on the Art of the Christian Ninja website. Please do all that, stuff, the subscribe and the like and the follow and all the rest of that every streamer needs, because that's literally the only way that this podcast is going to get out there, and the only way this live stream is going to get out there. And if you like what I'm doing here, maybe consider even hitting the donation button. And just, I'm still unemployed. Every little bit helps. I hope you have a great week. And there's one more thing I want to say, and that is, watch for me popping on to the internet with what I'm calling Late Night Counsel with Pastor Al, which is a new thing that I want to try, where later at night, maybe during the week, and I haven't quite decided yet, I'm just going to sit down and, instead of doing like this, official chat thing, I'm going to just try to find a way that I can connect with some folks online. We'll talk about more personal stuff. Instead of just doing theology stuff, we'll talk about more personal stuff, more of a counseling type session, as like a group counseling. So watch for that. Tell me if you think that's a good idea. Tell me if you think the best way I can do that, what it is. I would love to hear from you. All right, so I'll talk to you again when the next podcast drops. You'll hear my voice on Friday evening. So have a great Sunday, and I will see you later.